everybody talks consistently about how the Browns need more help at receiver. Now, one of the areas where the Browns are getting a lot of help in receiving the ball, but not necessarily at the position of receiver, is at tight end. And the guy that's been helping them the most, and actually the Browns' leading receiver, and I believe targets, receptions, and yards, is Harold Fanin Jr., a third-round pick in this year's draft from Bowling Green University. It's funny going back, but I remember as far back as last year at this time, we're talking about last December, Browns still playing football with Jameis Winston. And I remember every mock draft I would see, Browns fans would mock Harold Fanin Jr. to the Cleveland Browns in the second, maybe even the third round. I remember for a point in time, felt like you weren't going to be able to get him in the second round. And that is just one of those picks that everybody saw coming. Everybody thought would be a steal, and they still let the Browns get to it. And boy, has it really panned out to be one of the more impressive picks in the draft. Harold Fanin Jr. really doing impressive stuff. We could talk about the Browns' need receivers, but Harold Fanin Jr. doing a lot for pass catchers on this team. We're going to talk about it. We're going to break down his tape from this week. But before I do that, got to thank my sponsor, Sleeper. Real quick, just want to let you guys know Sleeper has a new offer here. They're offering a free $20 entry, no deposit required. And also, if you're a first-time user, you also will receive a 100% match on up to $100 when you use the promo code WORSTTAKE. Again, $20 free, no deposit required. Plus, first-time users also receive a 100% deposit match up to $100. Join Sleeper. All right, so let's look at Harold Fanin, his tape here. Again, I think he's put together an impressive season. We're going to look at all his targets from his game versus the Titans, see how he's getting these yards. So we're going to look for Harold Fanin. We're going to pull up the right part of this clip. So we're going to pull up Harold Fanin right here. And you're going to see Harold line up in line a lot, right? He's not really a stand-up all the time, but he's lining up in line here. Kind of releasing out, really strong route here. So again, off the line, you get him against a linebacker. You know this is a matchup you want. Gives him a little bit at the top of the route. And it opens up. Tight window, fills the window, doesn't overrun the window. Nice catch. And then this is where he's dangerous. Just look how easy it is for him to get extra yards. Right? Ball right here. He catches it about the 29. My bad, not the 29, the 31. And then he's just able to glide upfield and get an extra 7-8 yards. Really that where he gets so much extra out of what he's being asked to do, right? Like the reason he can have so many yards is because he does so much after the catch. Again, really nice there by Harold Fanin. Again, he had 100 yards in this game versus Tennessee. Has over 500 yards this season. And again, just look how dangerous he is after the catch. It's 3rd and 20. But he just, simple. Gets out. Stiff arms. Right? Catches his ball about 5 yards off the line of scrimmage, 6 yards at the line of scrimmage. So now it's 4th and 15. And look at how he turns this into a 4th and short. Nice. He has this stiff arm that I think is only going to get better with time because he's going to add more strength to it. But his ability to just turn up and get upfield, like he's faster than he looks. And that throws off a lot of these like DBs and linebackers that try to tackle him. He can just plant, get upfield, and then just be real physical. he's almost like a running back with the ball in his hands. Has that tight end like ability to block and to be physical, but also has that receiver like ability to run routes. You could just see why he's such a problem. Again, he's doing this stuff from in line, right? Like, this is a 1st and 10. He blocks, releases to a screen. Unfortunately, Big Jeff blows this one up because he saw it coming, right? So Big Jeff, real smart, sees this one coming the second he looks at Shador's drop and then works over to it. You were able to fool Big Jeff for just an extra second. Boy, do you got a lane there, but Jeff blew it up. Again, that's why elite defensive tackles create problems. Let's see where they have him lined up here. Now, I think they have him lined up at receiver, or at least he's standing up here. Yeah. So let's roll back so we can highlight him. Yeah, he's on the line here. I think this has a better chance to be completed. I talked about this in the Shador breakdown. If Shador steps up and doesn't have to like kind of complete that throw off his back feet here, and that gives the linebacker extra time. But fine enough route. Yeah, and we're going to continue talking about Harold Fanin and what it is that Harold is doing really well for this football team. And I believe this is him right here in line. Well, not off the line, but little block here, release to the check down. Oh boy, if you just could get this ball to him clean without him having to adjust, that's a big play. Right? He has to kind of adjust to this ball because it's thrown high and a little behind, so he has to kind of pirouette to it. But boy, if you could have got him this ball going downhill in stride. We talked about this in the Sanders breakdown, so I'm not going to go over it too much. But what the Browns are trying to do, again, they're running Sanders over here. I don't think he sells it well enough. And then they're running clear outs, right? They're just clearing space here. Basically, you're the Browns. You want Shador to move these guys to the hash with him rolling out, the threat of him rolling out. You want that gravity to pull the Titans defense to this side of the field. You want the verticality of these route concepts to pull these defenders out here. And you want to create a big block of empty space here on 1st and 10 to slip Harold Fanin out underneath and to let him just get free space to do whatever he wants. And this play call almost works, but I don't think it gets sold well enough by the quarterback. So you want to correct that the next time you run it, right? Not the best sell job here of that rollout, and then not the best throw. But if we could get that in stride, even if the sell job's not great, you get that in stride, that's a big play there for Harold Fanin on 1st down. So, you can see where there's potential for even more here if they could execute a little bit better. 2nd and 10. This is a deep ball. Great catch, great throw. Can't say enough about the throw. Can't say enough about the catch here. First, the throw. Talked about this in Shador's breakdown. Again, if you haven't watched that, go watch it. But look how clean the drop is here compared to a couple weeks. Much more vertical, much less drift. On time, top of the hitch. The ball's out. Throws this one here, and then a great cradle catch by Harold. Now, the one thing that's been biting Harold in the ass a little bit, right? He's had the case of the dropsies a little bit in the pros, which is unusual for Harold. Harold has not been a heavy drop guy ever in his career. He's one of the most sure-handed guys in college football, his entire college football career. So for him to have a little bit of the dropsies early on, was a bit of a concern. He was dropping a lot of big plays. He should have, honestly, if he was catching the ball at the rate that he was in college, I mean, he should have like 700-800 yards because there were a lot of missed opportunities with Joe Flacco and with Dylan Gabriel out there. And even with Shador, I think early on when Shador was starting, I think the first game, he had a couple of drop passes there. So he's been having to get over the case of the dropsies, right? Hopefully he's over that now because look at this catch here, right? A nice overhead cradle catch. That's That's perfect. I'll take that. And then to be coordinated enough to not only catch this ball, to track this ball, but to bring it in, tuck, and still, be able to go north with it. Really nice stuff. He thinks he should have scored. Like, how athletic do you got to be to think, hey, man, I probably should have scored on that one? All right, 2nd and 15. Let's see where Harold is lined up. This time he's standing up. I believe this is him in the slot. Yep. Again, this ball gets batted at the line of scrimmage. But if we watch Harold here, you get a one-on-one. And this is exactly what you want, one-on-one with the linebacker. Does a great job running this. Gets the ball here. And again, you're just seeing how they're like trying to scheme up stuff for Harold, right? Where they're trying to create space for him to run under to get these big yak plays. So this is another one where they got, I believe he's running a 9. Yeah, he's running a 9. So a 9 to pull that guy out that area, right? Carry him to this direction. So you're pulling this way, curl. So you're bringing out to this way. Jerry Jeudy here, this here. You're trying to open up a big void of space here. You successfully do it on a 2nd and 15. Again, if you can get this ball off, if Jeffrey Simmons isn't a menace here, get this ball off to him, and you can see an easy path to get to a 3rd and 5, possibly a first down, possibly even bigger of a play here. But I like what they're scheming up. I like what they're calling. I like how they're using Harold. And you just see here, he had 100 yards, but boy, you're a couple of inches away from some other big plays happening, right? This is the second one we looked at where you're like, oh yeah, it's another big play waiting to happen. They have a really good grasp, Kevin Stefanski and Tommy Rees, on what they want to do with Harold Fanin, how they want to use him. And if these guys aren't here next year, I think whoever's here next year should really look at how they're using Harold and do the same thing with him, because he becomes a very useful tool for them. And this is more creative than even how they use David, because if you ever watched the Browns with David Njoku, they never really had a great grasp of how to use David Njoku. This staff has a much better grasp already on how to use a guy like Harold Fanin, right? So with David, early on, what they wanted to do with David before like Kevin and it was like Freddie and Hugh and Todd Haley and that era, they were obsessed with making David a seam guy and a 50-50 ball guy. Now, David was okay at the seam stuff, right? But the 50-50 jump ball stuff, he's always been underwhelming at that stuff. You would assume because David Njoku's big as shit and he can jump really high, he's really good at the 50-50 ball stuff, but he's always been underwhelming. And part of that's because he doesn't have great hands. But what Kevin discovered with David is that you can do a lot of underneath stuff with David and turn him into like Derrick Henry going downhill. So what you ended up seeing was David, after about 2022, running a lot of curls, running a lot of stick, running a lot of drags, running a lot of ball routes, right? There's stuff to get David moving in an upfield, moving in an upfield, moving, catch, upfield, right? because he can get that momentum and be really hard to tackle. With Harold, you're seeing them use him more as a wide receiver. He gets some of these corner routes. He's really good at running those. You saw earlier he got a 9, right? And then they'll call up stuff where he's dragged out, but they'll clear a lot of space and use the gravity that they can to kind of play him there. So they have a lot more of a versatile plan with Harold than they did with David. And when you look at that, how that works, it's not surprising that David Njoku has just been phased out the offense completely in favor of Harold, because Harold, while not being the same thing as David, he kind of fixes what David couldn't, which is David was always a awkward fit in this offense, talented enough that they can make it work, but still always kind of an awkward fit. As for Harold, is a more natural fit in this offense. He fits more of that mold of the tight ends that you see in a West Coast, Shanahan style offense, right? More agile, more mobile, can run a fuller route tree, that kind of stuff. So that is why he's able to so easily kind of phase out David Njoku in this offense. Not because I think David's cooked, because I don't think David's cooked. I think David's going to have some good years left if he plays for somebody else next year. And ironically enough, I kind of want to see him do a return with Baker Mayfield in Tampa Bay, because they run a vertical scheme there. And I think David can do some of that vertical stuff really well. So, it might be a nostalgia play for some of y'all who stuck with the Baker Mayfield universe after the Browns broke up with them. I'm not really interested in that, right? And I've had my arguments with the Baker Bros over the years. Not really fond, but I think a reunion out there in Tampa Bay might be a really good thing for David, because he's a vertical threat. And if you're Baker Mayfield, you like throwing the bigger guys, because Baker's he's not the most accurate quarterback in the world. I know people get pissy whenever I criticize him, but that's kind of just the reality. The brother's not brother. The man is not accurate. All right. Anyways, that aside, let's keep looking at Harold Fanin here. Again, if you ever see a linebacker on Harold Fanin one-on-one, you're going to take that so easily, right? Right here in the slot, he gets a one-on-one with the linebacker. He just can't keep up. Like this guy has no shot here, and he has no help. And look how open he gets here. First of all, it's got to be a busted coverage. Somebody has to come down here, and I think the safety gets caught on his heels. I think he's watching Shedeur, thinking Shedor's going to go downfield. So good job by Shedeur holding these safeties deep. Creates a little bit of a void here. And that's how Harold gets wide open, on top of him being covered by a linebacker who was just never going to do anything. All right, 1st and 10 here, 2:43. And they're going to run Harold underneath here, little slip screen. And then Harold does a great job, because the screen's kind of dead on arrival. Like right here, it's kind of dead on arrival, because I believe that Joel isn't out there yet. The backer kind of beats Joel to that spot, but Harold just kind of squeezes, gets north here, and then finds a way to make that screen work. That shit was dead on arrival, right? He's doing a lot with Yak. Like, he is a very impressive Yak guy here. This one, they have Harold standing up in the slot on the left-hand side of your screen, on the left-hand hash. And again, just a solid route, kind of catches the safety flat-footed. Shedeur gets that ball up, and he does a good job high pointing it. A lot of distance there. You probably, like, in hindsight, a little bit more. I mean, like, I'm not going to ask Shedeur to be perfect there, because he is getting pressure. But yeah, he beats him cleanly, and because he beats him so clean, he has the time to turn back and high point the ball and help his quarterback out, who is dealing with a lot of pressure there. So great job. Great job by Harold Fanin. But that's Harold Fanin Jr., really impressive tight end out of Cleveland. He's been a great weapon for this passing attack. And he's part of why I feel like, yeah, the Browns need to get some wide receivers in the offseason, but I don't think they need to tear down the entire pass catcher group and start from scratch. I think with Jerry Jeudy, Harold Fanin, you can add a couple more pieces to that, and you can have yourself a pretty lethal room come next year. If you add a vet here or there, maybe go after somebody who could take the load off of Jerry Jeudy, add a draft pick. I really think you're going to have a pretty solid room then. But that's my thoughts. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Y'all have a great day. Have an even better night. Peace.